Why does America use miles, but then the United Kingdom and the rest of the world use kilometers? It's honestly kind of like getting ready for a party only to realize it was canceled, and I think that's really funny, okay?
That's actually a really good way to put it. That is why we spell meter as M-E-T-E-R.
I want to get eating to these mangoes.
Oh yes, mangoes, the king of fruits. Eat up.
Yeah. Hey, Akush, remember that time we went to London a few years back?
Oh yes, Amataka, I absolutely love that. It's an experience I'm never forgetting. Being in London and going to London was so fun. I really loved it.
Well, that's awesome, because I was thinking just now, you know how we started our flight at Dallas Fort Worth and then flew all the way to London Heathrow?
Yes.
I was wondering, what's the distance between Dallas and London? Let's say in miles.
In miles. Okay, so what is the distance between Dallas and London? So over the Atlantic Ocean, and doing this, you can see that it is equivalent to 4,750 miles. That is the distance between Dallas and London.
Wow, that's a lot. Well, it makes sense considering it's over the Atlantic. But also I have another question. What is that in kilometers?
Ah, that is an even better question. So let's take a look at the conversion between these two. So, as you may know, 1 mile is equal to 1.61 kilometers. So, using this conversion rate, we can figure out that the distance from Dallas to London in kilometers is a bit over 7,500 kilometers.
That is awesome. I have one last question for you.
Hit me with it.
Why does America use miles, but then the United Kingdom and the rest of the world use kilometers?
That is the best question of them all. And you know what? That really is interesting. Like, there's going to be a really cool backstory behind it as to why America uses miles and the rest of the world uses kilometers. That would be such a fun thing to figure out.
Yep, so let's find out.
Let's do it. So, as we have said, you now know that 1 mile is equal to 1.61 kilometers. And so, this is, interestingly enough, a result of Britain.
Yeah, because it's so interesting, because you would think, hey, America did this by itself. No, Britain, when it was the colonial power of America, brought these imperial units over, and over time, it changed into the modern US customary system.
Yep. So the imperial system was actually originally created in Britain because imperial empire, and Britain was an empire.
That makes sense.
Yes, it does. And this imperial system relied on inches, feet, and miles as their units of length. And so what happened was, over time, this became the customary, hence the name US customary units for America. And now, by this time, literally the entire rest of the world, Britain included, switched to an entirely different system, namely the metric system, which relies on meters and kilometers. And that is actually pretty interesting because Britain's own system, Britain isn't even using anymore, but America is using them. So in 1975, the US government passed a bill into law that officially stated that for governmental and commercial purposes, you have to use the metric system. Now, this means you have to use these kilometers. But there is one caveat to this, and this caveat is that the people of the United States are free to just switch anytime they want between these two systems, between the US customary system, which means miles, and the other system, the metric, which relied on kilometers. You can switch between these two, and it doesn't matter as long as you mark it which is which. And this is actually quite interesting.
Well, yeah, it's a nice effort at standardization, but you see, the US population which had been using the US customary system for centuries now, they were like, why do we have to use the metric system, a system we are unfamiliar with, when we can just keep using the one we've been using for so long? So they didn't change. That was all that happened.
Yeah, so in the end, the result of that law passed in 1975 was, well, nothing really changed. I mean, aside from government and commerce, everything else stayed with the current US customary system. And for the other two, we are using metric.
That's right. But there is one exception in the entirety of the United States.
There
and
is?
Yeah, that exception, it's called Interstate 19 in Arizona. It is the only interstate in the entirety of the United States that uses kilometers instead of miles.
What?
Yeah, so like during that law, right?
Yeah.
All of the interstates, all of the highways in America, they didn't change the miles except for this one interstate. So, and then they didn't change back, so they were kind of stuck with these kilometers.
That is really interesting.
Yeah.
So what has happened is the whole rest of the country's highways, the whole rest of the United States interstates have used miles for a long time, so they didn't mind switching it. They didn't have to.
Yeah.
But when it comes to this one Interstate 19 in Arizona, they basically decided to switch because it was in accordance with what the government was planning, and as it turns out, no one else did it. So this remains the only interstate, the only highway in the entire country that still uses kilometers. And that's actually pretty interesting. It makes it an exception.
Yep.
And Arizona is actually quite special. There's a lot of cool, wonderful facts about it.
It's honestly kind of like getting ready for a party only to realize it was canceled, and I think that's really funny, okay?
That's actually a really good way to put it. I must also note that there's another major reason why America is using miles, and that's because, well, America is a big country. Like, look at that! America is a very, very large country. So, what that means is, it's not just the country as a whole, right? If you look at the cities, they're also pretty big. The suburban areas expand for a very long stretches. And so what that means is, you would have to use the longer distance. So miles are a better fit for America than kilometers are, because miles are the longer unit, and America would very much fit those.
That makes a lot of sense, but I have one more question that I just thought of.
Yeah.
If we are not using meters, then why do we have a different spelling for them? Like, why do we spell it with ER at the end if we don't even use them?
That's a good point. Because normally, like in the rest of the world, you see meter is spelled M-E-T-R-E.
Yep.
And that is also something that we noticed in our trip to London, is that they spell meters M-E-T-R-E-S. That's meters. But now the thing is, we come to America, and slowly over time, the metric system is being brought in. Like, not many people are using it, but it is a good amount of people. So, when the father of the American dictionary, Noah Webster, introduced all of these new words, including meter, into the dictionary, he wanted to change the spellings to simplify them, make them less complex. So this included removing the U from the word color, and removing and changing the R-E to E-R in the word meter. And that is why we spell meter as M-E-T-E-R. That is a really interesting fact.
Well, that definitely explains all of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really great subject. It's super interesting and a really, really fun topic. And, you know...
So, like, if you guys want some more interesting and fun topics, you should like, share, and subscribe to our channel.
Absolutely! So, you know, make sure to like and subscribe and put that notification bell on. Because that way you can see more of these videos like this.
Well, for now, I want to get eating to these mangoes.
Oh, yes. Mangoes. The king of fruits. My favorite.
We're gonna go now, right?
Yes. Let's do it. All right.
Akash and Amrita, bye.
We'll see you. All right. Eat up.
Yeah.